Gabe, you need to get on too. All right, so I started the recording for tonight, and I want to talk about homework, and mostly homework, not quizzes. Quizzes kind of by relation to homework. So as you notice, and you might be frustrated because you don't have me for other classes, um, well, that you might be more frustrated because you have me for other classes. Laugh, although not with this group because you don't have me for other classes. Okay, so um, I hadn't graded things right away in this class. I hadn't graded quizzes right away, I hadn't graded homework right away, whereas in my AutoCAD class, it was just like I finished it all at once really quickly recently up and caught up to this point. This class uh, was frustrating me because of the homework that I was grading. It was taking me a really long time, and I don't submit your homework back to you until I have graded everyone's, and unless it has an imminent problem, like I have to solve it right then, and I need to give you direct feedback because I feel like we can't move forward without it. So I've been grading the first homework assignment for a really long time because there was a lot of plagiarism in this class. And I have this problem, and I've only ever taught this once before, but I had this problem the last time. And that's why when I initially started the class in the first week, I sent out the announcement on plagiarism, and you might have noted it kind of was worded oddly because this went out last time after people did the first visual assignment. So I said for the sourcing, I'm looking for educational sources like .edus, museums, some .orgs. This can still be questionable because .orgs can be paid for by people. So if they want them to say certain things, they can donate a certain amount, and sometimes that sways how the things are written. Trying to use articles from books or free online or limited view, Google Scholar is a nice place to start. And you can also use books here on campus or a campus near you or a local library. Plagiarism, um, things need to be in your own words. If I can Google a site without clicking the link, it's a good idea that it's plagiarized. There should be a clear difference in their words and your words. If it's a word that is clearly out of your vocabulary and it's unrelated to an object like subordination or affirming, where most of us would say comes below or lesser, or shows or true. Bigger words that are clearly not used by you shouldn't be used in your writing unless they're quoted. And they're clear indications to me that they're not your own words because most I've met or I've had a conversation with, and I want to hear your voice. I don't need the voice of someone with their PhD. I want to know how you're interpreting and applying concepts generally from their writing, okay? So supplemental material, each answer should have at least 1 to 2 new pieces of information outside of the book. So besides plagiarism, I had a lot of what I will call basic information, basic answers. And it might have been because even though I posted this, I posted the example assignments. This wasn't to say these were great written answers, and not to say that these are bad written answers, but some of the information in even these is what I call basic. I want to remind everyone that the audience you're writing to is me, and I'm teaching you history, and I've taught it before. So, and it says 1 to 2 pieces new from beyond your book. So I'm looking for information that's thrilling, something that's new, and it's not always going to be thrilling maybe. There'll be some things we write on that are flat in a way, but I'm looking for you to try and dig a little deeper into some unique educational sources. Let's say if we're talking about teepees in ancient civilizations, like what colors they made out of certain type of pigments from the earth and dyes that they applied to the hides of the teepee. I don't want to just know the teepees are made out of poles and I don't want to just know that they only had earth for the floor. I already know that from your book, and I already know that because those are basic things I can tell by looking at your image. So it should be unique information, and it should be fun to read. I'm not assigning these things as busy work, which I'll get to at the end of this talk. I'm assigning it because you're learning more information on top of your reading and those general quizzes that are just pounding into your brain, the memorized important pieces like motifs and elements of design and structure and architecture. This is above and beyond that, more detail. Back to that little note that went out way at the beginning of this class. I said, do not make me dig. The link should not be shortened or vague. I need to be able to click and end up right where the image or text was that you use. I didn't really have that issue this year or semester. I had an issue of, I said you could use Wikipedia as a starting point to find sources. There are great sources at the bottom of Wikipedia content where it takes you back to the educational sources or the sources that made up the Wikipedia content. But I'm having people who think there's tricking me by putting the educational content link and then plagiarizing or using the information of multiple sites that comes from the Wikipedia portion. So that doesn't trick me because I read all of your sheets, every single one of them, and if I ever question where it came from, I read all of the content from whence it came, and then I write back to you and I say, after reading this 5-page article, you did not in fact use this. So it's extremely time consuming to me when people do that kind of thing. And that's why people can't get their work back because I'm too busy correcting stuff like that. So to me it reads as, and I'm going to use this word once, laziness in reading instruction. But I know it's not always that way. I know life can be busy sometimes, but if that is the problem, then come to me and say, like someone said last week, there's a lot of quizzes and I feel like this is a laborious amount of work added with my visual assignment. Can we taper this back? And maybe if enough people came to me and said that, we'd have a discussion about it. But I
And
can't help you until you do. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, yeah, I kind of, that's kind of how I feel. I feel like I'm so slammed with the quizzes and like answers, and I have other classes, so I really don't have a lot of time to do that visual stuff, because it's not just simple questions what you want from us. You want to do research, but the research takes time. And
Exactly, Lisa. So
so yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, that yeah, I probably correct my work too, because I use information from Wikipedia just to simplify and finish assignment on time, because I really wasn't like doing everything on time.
yeah,
I didn't.
yeah. So I guess just take me very seriously when I say to you, and mostly joking, like in a joking manner often because I'm kind of sarcastic and goofy and you'll get used to that. But when I say I'm a resource to you, I mean there's been students who have messaged me at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I am almost always available. And if you are really bothered, like when you said, can I taper the quizzes? And you brought it up last week and I said, well, here's why I don't feel I want to do that. I've already cut it back because I've had this conversation before, and then not enough people were telling me that feedback. And when it's one person, it's hard for me to know if that's where we're at as a class. And it does matter what the general feeling of the class is, because some classes have less work outside. Some overwhelmingly have a different lifestyle. So I like to reevaluate those things going into a class. And that's good information to know, but also for you to come to me personally and tell me your situation if you feel it is so, like I had a student who said, okay, well, I approached her and I said, this is the content that I have. Um, what else are you taking? And if you didn't have the quizzes, would you work harder at the visual assignments? And so then I want to pose to this class, the 8 of you who decided to come tonight, would you want to get rid of the quizzes? And if you say you want to get rid of the quizzes, then just know that I do take a lot of time to grade. And if we get rid of the quizzes, the good thing about the quizzes is it is concrete information that you are almost bound to get right if you do the work. I do think it is good to burn it into your memory. I honestly do think it's good. Is there too many? Maybe. But if we get rid of them, that concrete information you are almost bound to get right that carries your grade to be a good A or a B, then it is dependent on truly working very hard at these visual assignments. But if you're saying you'll enjoy the creative aspect of that more, I'm willing to cut them and up ramp these assignments to be a little heftier, not overwhelmingly equal to having so many quizzes, but it'll be more research based, and then it'll have more like inclusiveness of the vocabulary you might have used on a quiz in a different way. Is that something that sounds better to you as a class?
Do you want to, you're not going to read the quizzes at all, right?
I
That's what
read
you
the
said.
quizzes. Yeah, I do. I read the quizzes. I
No,
read
no, no. I mean, you're not trying canceling quizzes. You're just
Yes,
going to,
yes,
oh, you want to just cancel quizzes?
yeah.
I don't know. It's sort of confusing. I kind of enjoy to do both, but what I noticed, at first, honestly, I thought it's stupid visual assignments, but actually the more I'm doing that, like that columns, by doing that research, actually I do know different right now,
Yeah.
difference between them. I do found that very helpful right
Mhm.
now. So, which is, with the quizzes, I feel like I just want to get through them,
Mhm.
and it doesn't stay much in my head.
Okay.
That's kind of mean, but I'm not sure if I want to read of them
Yeah.
exactly. Maybe
So like,
every other
I
one.
mean, I can give you more effort towards redoing these visual assignments where I say, make sure you incorporate within your research so many motifs, so many architectural elements. You know, so like we don't do everything. You maybe pick one of the cultures and then you focus on it, which is it's not gonna be as broad of a scope then, but maybe you'll remember it more, and we'll be doing what we do on the quizzes, but in combination with the visual assignment, and it'll cut back the work, but it will require, I'm just saying, then the information cannot be plagiarized at all. There's not going to be an excuse anymore as to why we don't have time, lifestyle, regardless, because I'm trying to work with you and give you guys content in a way that you want it, okay? So anybody else, these are really helpful opinions. Anyone else? Okay. Can you hear Emily in the background? She was saying it'd be helpful if maybe the quizzes were formatted differently so that instead of everything being essay, some things are multiple choice and some things are fill in the blank and some things are essay, but there's still a quiz component to it along with the visual assignment.
Yeah, maybe.
Can you hear me, Allison?
I can hear you. Cassie.
Okay. Sorry, it took me forever to do that. I've been trying to talk forever, but I couldn't get my phone to work. I don't mind doing the quizzes because honestly, they're like easy points to earn.
Yeah.
But I love like drawing stuff and like working on hand rendering and like doing that kind of stuff. I think that's fun, and I think it's like good practice. So I love any assignments that you have where we have to like draw stuff out. The thing that I struggle with the most is doing like all of the research that goes along with the assignments. Like I had a hard time finding like good websites to use that weren't just Wikipedia or things like that.
Yeah.
So
I think,
you know, I don't know.
and I think it is hard, and I think a lot of it is like whatever your background is. Like I came right from education and now I teach at a high school, so I'm constantly reminded of sources and like how to dig into those partial views of books. And like that sounds silly, but if you go to Google Books, and even though you can only view certain chapters, if you put in your content, it's going to take you to maybe a full view of a chapter because it's going to specify whatever search word you put in there. And then you just need like what, a page, and then you get a source of book, which is awesome and educational. And it's plenty. It's no more than the one-page websites that I'm going to for some of these things. So I would really try Google Books and just limited views and searching. You can find plenty in books even though they don't let you read the whole thing. But I think too, like I'm really reluctant because I know a lot of people struggle with this research portion, but this class is like the best class that I can give you that kind of experience in without it penalizing you in a way that's going to hurt your career, and to let you know, hey, you're verging on plagiarism, or hey, these aren't educational sources, when it doesn't count as much in these first couple of assignments. I think that it's really important to your careers. I mean, I was working in the contract industry where you're asked to do product research all the time. And then residential, the use of images on things like a blog, if you go on to do that, even your Facebook technically, although I'm a little perpetrator of that, and writing that you might have for a company, any company that you think you're going to dabble in outside of your 2-year degree, most likely, unless it's like a Pier 1 or a small store where you're just selling off the floor. If you do research and you plagiarize or you copy content that is not yours, that's like a jail sentence kind of fine, something that's beyond the scope of me just slapping you on the wrist for it in this class. And I'd rather us practice those skills now than completely just let it go and say, oh, this is interior design, this is art, and I just need information from you. I'm letting you do that on the quizzes because I understand the distress of having to reword things constantly, especially in history, but I think there's enough good content out there that we can, like 100-word thing, answer some questions. And I also think that if we taper something back and we start doing it, let me be even clearer on how not to plagiarize or how to like better round off these things. If you're only using one source right now outside of your book, and I'm hearing it's a time issue, that's okay. But it, really, the more sources, the better. One, like 2 to 3 would cut down plagiarism by half of what you're dealing with right now, some of you. And it would also make your content better, because a lot of the time, not only, maybe you're not plagiarizing at all, but some of you are so selectively reading, like you get to Pueblo Homes and then it's like one paragraph in a 7-page article, and you just only pull content from one paragraph that's already only 200 words, and then your paragraph is 100 words, and it's like, really? There were 7 pages. We could have just gone to a different page. So like really broaden your view of what you're reading, because I was able to find good interesting content from other paragraphs. It was just like maybe you're hyper focusing on finishing and not examining all the stuff that's in the same place you're looking. So let's keep talking about it. So quizzes, no quizzes. Annie, how do you feel about it? Have they been helpful to you?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Now I can't hear you. It was like really soft.
Can you hear me now?
It's really quiet, Annie. Is your mic by your mouth?
Let me turn.
You were so clear earlier.
Hold on.
Oh, there you go. I hear you now. No, I don't. It's like a back and forth thing.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. It's all good to me. This is only my second class, and so I'm learning as I go. And as I'm out into the community, I'm just picking up all these little things that I'm learning on signs and buildings, and so it's like opening up a whole new world for me. And I know that this is going to be very important for me in the interior design world. As far as going into someone's home and they tell me they like a certain style, you know, then I know exactly what they're talking about, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't take a lot of classes, but I do need the depth of what you're doing. You know, I need all this. Now, I'm probably the one that's plagiarizing because I wasn't quite clear. I thought it was okay for us to go to Wikipedia, find it, and answer it that way. But you're saying, no. You're saying, look everywhere and then put it in your own words.
So Always in your own words for visual assignments. Quizzes can come straight out the book because they're just like
Okay.
math tests, you know, apply this formula, give me what the book is. The book is just to tell me, did you read the book and with what depth did you read it? Just copy paste. Visual
Okay.
assignments are your chance for creativity and interpretation and digging through to find interesting, and let me emphasize interesting feedback, because your audience is not someone who's trying to, at the surface level of, let's say, a teenager or lower, understand what a TP is. There's someone who is me and who
Okay.
is like right there with you and knows that everything from the book, learned that with you. And now it's like, but what do you find interesting, or where would you go to find something interesting that you can add that you might want to share with a classmate to broaden their
Okay.
understanding? And then I was just saying, for the people who did plagiarize that I got to this week, that to avoid it, yep, 2 to 3 sources. Now, Wikipedia can be a starting place, because if you go to Wikipedia, at the bottom of Wikipedia, so Wikipedia, and I don't even really ever go there, but we'll say Playblow Homes, and we'll click here. They usually give external links and references for where all this content came from. They basically just take everything and culminate it together. But I want to know the source. Just like in reading, if I want to get to the truth, I'd find the source. So I could look through here and try to find, you know, the origins of Salinas Pueblos, and then go there, and it's a National Park Service, so it must actually be educational in some way, and then try to follow this back to an educational source that I could cite, and then find the original content. Now maybe it's just this picture here, or you don't know what you're going to get.
Okay. Do you have something on the screen right
Oh,
now?
yeah, now I
Oh,
do.
because I, oh, okay. Thank you.
So
Good.
like let me go back and do it in another step. I went to Wikipedia, Pueblo, and then if I scroll to the bottom, here's the references and external links, and this takes me back to where all of this content came from on the internet and books. And then when I click on them, I can go and view them. So what I was saying is, if you're like ingrained in your mind, and most of us are, especially like 20 somethings, to come here for your content, then just know that this content came from an educational place, most likely, and it's right down here. So why not just go to the source and then click on this link? So use this as a place to start to find links, and then go to those links and cite those links, not Wikipedia.
Gotcha.
That was what the tip was on Wikipedia.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now
Thank you.
let me say this about plagiarism as a whole. So if I haven't graded your work yet, if this is your first time plagiarizing and you get work back from me, what I'll ask you to do is redo the work for this assignment. If it's a second time plagiarizing from another class, then what I'll ask you to do is take a 0, because you know better. I've talked about it before. And then the idea is that's it for this class, and if it happens again for a third time, which is way more times than I'm supposed to give, it just, I can't in my heart usually not give at least 2 warnings, then it's a dismissal from the class and sometimes from the program. And that's what it's supposed to be on the second time. So that's why I'm really adamant about nipping this in the bud in this class, where it's not as important as advanced design. And it's not to like be angry, because it's more like, I know that we're coming from all over. Some people haven't been in the educational system. They're returning, they're mothers who had kids and haven't been in school for 20 years, you know?
Oh,
So
okay, me. That's me.
yeah, or there's people who came from high school, and I know, as someone who came from a high school, we covered plagiarism like once, you know, and then it was just kind of either your teacher cared or they didn't care. So I want this to be your chance to know that it's a big deal. It is. And it's better in this class than in a future occupation where you're really penalized for it in a big way. But
Allison, may I ask a question?
yeah.
Um, so are you giving us notes? You're writing to us?
So yes, I give you feedback, and that's why it's taken so long. I started grading all the quizzes, and I can assure you I'll probably grade all the rest of the history quizzes you've taken for this week by tomorrow. But the first assignment, I'm still only halfway through the class, because I've been typing paragraphs. I'll type back and I'll say, I'll highlight all the plagiarism, first of all. I'll highlight if you gave me the wrong source or tried to trick me, which not everyone did, or maybe didn't mean to do, but just did Wikipedia and then pretended it was they actually went to this site. I'll say why it's plagiarism. Sometimes people plagiarize without knowing it. They've changed all the words. So I have instances where, let's say there's only this much information and it was pre-Columbia towns, villages, and Southwest, such as blah, blah, were located in defensible positions. And someone gives me pre-Columbian towns and little dwellings in the Southwest, such as Acoma, were positioned in defensible positions, for example, on very steep mesas. Okay, so that's not enough word changes, and you haven't changed the overall concept around enough to not be plagiarizing an idea. And sometimes they'll change all the words, but they'll only cite from one paragraph the size of the paragraph that they're writing, and in that case it's not a broad enough picking, like they didn't pick from multiple sites or multiple places on their source far apart enough for it not to be plagiarizing that paragraph, even with the changes. So I'll write about how to fix that and suggestions, and then after I get through it, and like I'm not out to get you, okay? I'm out to help, and then I usually give bad feedback about what went wrong, was less successful, like that kind of stuff, and then I'll talk about how great your drawings were, because let's be honest, I posted on Facebook this big collage of all your work, and you all pretty much killed the drawing portion of that first assignment. So I was really proud of all of that work, and it clearly showed me that most of you who plagiarized were not in fact malicious, just didn't know you were plagiarizing, because no one would put that much work towards a drawing only to turn in a file that they thought they were sneaking by with plagiarism. So I understand it's not always the, okay, we're out to get you, Mrs. Green. It's just like, I didn't know, and I want to correct it. So that's what the feedback will be. I'll be like, yeah.
Allison, may I ask you something? Where are you putting this information at? All I see on mine is just the scores.
Yeah,
so would it
sure.
be there? Or?
I'm trying to think of a way that I can go about, it's in the comments section. I'm trying to think of like a student that wouldn't care. Emily, can I use you as an example? All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. But you know in the Grade Center, Annie?
Mm-hmm.
If you go in the Grade Center and... One second, I'm trying to get to my Grade Center. And wherever like you can see, let's say on the quiz, and then you can like click on it, I have to get to a student's work really quick. And I might be able to go back in time here to a different course altogether to do this. So I'm going to do 2016 CAD. And mine looks different than yours, which is why I have to find it, but I'm going to pick, okay. So I'm going to share my screen again. So I'm in the Grading Center, and then I clicked on, from the Grading Center, if I was a student, and imagine it's the same thing, I clicked assignment 1 for Mary Hart here from 2016 AutoCAD, and here's her like drawing whatever she's submitting, and then over here on the right side there's the score and everything. So you should be able to see this kind of layout, right?
Okay.
And then, and you know where the Grade Center is? See over here on the left where my hand is? There's Grade Center over here. And
I didn't see that. Okay.
And if you don't have that, then you have grades up here.
Grade. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So then under grades, wherever the assignment is, the visual assignment, once it's graded, I don't think I got yours. I think your one I didn't. But once it is graded, over here under the feedback, it'll say feedback to learner, and here I wrote, great job, you have a third of the tools you'll need to start doing a floor plan. Hooroo. And then here's her submission. If you're getting something back from me, under here there'll be a little clickable link under my feedback, and it'll say see attached drawing, and you just click on it, and then it'll open up your work, and I'll have typed in that feedback portion of the instructor's comments on your homework.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so let's see. So we had some people join us a little later. We were just talking about, and this isn't going to be a normal class because we were talking about why the homework hasn't been back. Plagiarism, not just plagiarism, but getting good ideas, why homework takes so long, should we get rid of the quizzes? So for those of you who weren't here, do you feel like the quizzes are helpful? Do you like the quizzes or the visual assignments better? Can you see the importance of both? Or would you rather have a little bit more substantial visual assignment and just get rid of the quizzes?
Well, as we've gone along, it's been helpful to do the quiz once, like for this assignment, the rug assignment, it was very helpful to do the quiz and then do the rug assignment because I was able to kind of regurgitate some of the, oh, this is why it's like this. Where before it wasn't necessarily, maybe not like that because we were researching different things. But with the rug assignment, for sure, it helped because it was coinciding.
So, like, are you spending hours on those quizzes, or are you saying like 30 minutes a quiz, would you say? Do you feel like it's a ton of time?
It's probably more like 45 minutes to an hour per quiz.
Okay, so that's a lot of time. 30 minutes per quiz, I would say, would be what I'd want it to be taking. Some of you are writing way too much. Some of you are, I'd say it's mostly medium to way too much in this class. I wouldn't say there's a lot of too little, and if there is, I let you know. And I wouldn't say there's been a lot of below A level work. Really, I'll say almost no one got below an A on these first couple quizzes. So you're doing it right. Some of you could do less, and I can email you about that. But what about, yeah, go ahead.
That's probably me because, yes, I have a hard time. For me, I mean, my writing skills are not great, so I have to, like, check the spellings. Probably I have, like, trouble to select exactly what you want, like what purpose of your quiz, just to let you know that, yes, we read the book, or you want detailed answers, like, because I know I'm writing way too much and my quiz takes like at least an hour and a half to do, sometimes more.
Yeah.
One quiz.
So that's why, so we're seeing, I can tell you're seeing across the board, it sounds like, value in the information that's in the quizzes and reinforcing it in some way. But let's say, like, if instead of having every single group this week that we had to do a quiz on and then pick the visual assignment, if you would have just had your visual assignment and then it would have been, let's say, Byzantine rugs, or you have to do multiple types of rugs, and then within that assignment, you know, the expectation, I'm clear in the instructions about you must use to defend your answer the exact motifs and why you chose the patterns you did and how, you know, like, so the research and the vocabulary are built in more intentionally into your visual assignments, but we get rid of the quizzes. So you don't feel like you're losing using that information, but we're just tapering down how much we are. Now the only issue is like some of these do let you focus in, so there'll be people who fall through the cracks except for you reading about them and except for the lecture portions.
It seems like everyone not really want to read of the quizzes.
All right, so so then there's Emily who's like, let's just not do, she said she wants to keep the quizzes and have less work, which is her smart way of saying quizzes are easy points, and which, to be honest with you, is like, that's why I have them. I mean, it's a great reinforcement and they're easy points, and I'm not in the business of failing people who are already working really hard to learn. So I know it's already difficult for my English second language people to be reading this kind of content and giving it back. So I like to give here's a very concrete way to remember this and use it on our visual assignments and get points. So I hate to cut them completely. I also hate to have to then choose to cut half of them and choose which half of them I'm cutting, then I just feel like selectively like, oh, sorry, Islam, we're not covering you, but we are going to cover the Christian, like that seems a little crazy too. So, and then go ahead.
What if what's on the quiz is like reinforcing what's just like what you said, but so say like on this, it would be about motifs because we use the motifs in the assignment.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see how that would coincide? So that way the quizzes are simpler, but they're still reinforcing.
So the emphasis would change each week. Like one would be an architectural assignment, and one might be motifs, and the other one might be decorative objects, and
based on what we're studying, what the assignment's going to be.
Yes. Choose each week quiz or project the way you prefer to learn. Okay, so Kate, choose the way you prefer to learn. Choose each week quiz or project the way you prefer to learn. I'm just going to put this out there. Like, it's a good idea. I already tried to take account the way people learn. So when I did the visual assignments, and like, let's say this week or like a week where we can either do a research with no art and a very art-oriented one, or, 1 week where we purely do research and then 1 week where we purely do art. So like visual learners and written learners. And then there's a whole bunch of other types of assignments that are coming up where we do like creative mood boards, like we're working for a client, and there's no drawing, but it's just purely interior design related. And then, yeah. So the difficult part about separating into you take the quizzes and you do the projects is Emily over here is going to just do the quizzes, because how can you get them wrong? And anyone in their right mind who wants to get an easy A is going to pick the quizzes because that's the easy thing to do and it's straightforward. And so I don't know why anyone would do the visual assignments except for their extreme sense of wonder, which I hope all of you have, and no one would just choose to do the quizzes. It'd be too hard to grade, really, too, because the level of easiness of the quizzes then is being so concrete versus the applied reasoning that goes into a visual assignment and talent and skill and all the other things. That'd be impossible. It would be almost unfair if people chose to do the quizzes. And then I tried to like broaden the scope of styles and ways we relay the information, which we haven't gotten to the really good ones yet, but I don't know. It's difficult. I'll tell you, as a teacher, it's difficult. What about if we like switch it up this week, like by default, because of catching up and grading and how many quizzes there are, it's just quizzes. When there's so many quizzes, I usually shorten the quizzes even a little bit more, 1 or 2 questions, and I've already shortened them. So there's no visual assignment this week. I just pose it to you. You're welcome. So I guess, and this week I'm not going to give you a lecture, 1, because we're still missing 5 people, and 2, because I just want this to simmer a little bit. So be thinking about emailing me and saying if you want the quizzes or you don't want the quizzes. I don't hear from you, then you are choosing to not participate in your fate, okay? People who mostly hear, it sounds like we're saying, people do want the quizzes or they want some points that are concrete, so I'll be thinking of ways I can limit that. I kind of like the idea of like maybe the quiz is associated and then we have architecture weeks and we have design object weeks. I know that there has been a teacher who tried to run it where they had 7 different projects each week, and that's crazy to me. They tried to do one where you could pick design, motifs, objects, research, and that is crazy. So let's be thinking on how we want to make this class better. And then let's also, this is another thing. So you have the quizzes, which not to say that it's easier because there's a lot of quizzes, but because there's no visual assignment, use any extra time. If you have not been graded yet, rush off your computers tonight. If you go, here's another thing. If you think you might be plagiarizing or you have any fear, because I sound like you should be afraid tonight, then go to free plagiarism checker, okay? Now there's lots of these, and I haven't tried all of them. I tried a few of them the other day, but I mean, the gist is pretty much the same no matter where you go. Now Grammarly, it'll check it, and it's the best one, and it'll check it for free, and it'll say, yes, you have plagiarism, but it won't tell you what and what it was. So this is the best one because some of these, they don't check everything. They don't check Google. They'll only check Yahoo or whatever they do for free. But they'll tell you where it was and how much, like a percentage, so they're better for that. This is like your final check. If you run it through one of these cheap guys and then you run it through here and it's still plagiarism, start over again. These are free to you. The other thing is I set the homework assignment to be ran through a plagiarism checker, and it told me the percentage. So some of you are getting your homework back, and I said this assignment had 40% plagiarism according to the checker. So you're redoing it. And you should be able to see that before you send it. And I'm going to look into that this week myself because it seemed like only people who saved it as a Word document of a certain type, they got checked, and then other people who saved it sent it to me as a PDF for some reason. They didn't get checked. But you should see that I'm running that software, and it should tell you the percentage of plagiarism or non-plagiarism. And I'm going to try and get that working better because I'd like you to see it before you turn it in. Then tonight, if you are worried about it, I mean, if you want to go to bed, you can do that too and do it tomorrow because I'm not going to run in and start grading this when I leave here. But go ahead and email me and say, you know what, I'm kind of afraid. I'd like to check through mine once more, and I'm going to let you know tomorrow, by tomorrow end of day, that I've fixed it, or I'm going to be fixing it and taking a slight deduction because it will be late at that point, and we'll talk about that privately, I guess. But check it. And then anyone who I have found plagiarism, I'm giving the opportunity for me to not grade ahead to sessions 2 and 3 and say, all right, well, I found this here, but I'm not going to keep going because I don't want to hit number 2 because I was slow to grade it. I want you to say, okay, she found it already. Odds are I did it on the second assignment as well. So I'm going to run that through a plagiarism checker and fix it. I want to give you all the opportunities to fix these things. And this week's assignment. Okay, the rug one? The rug one doesn't really have plagiarism in it because it's more like, yeah. Emily was saying, could I make this week's assignment due tomorrow? Yeah, Emily. So, let's see. I know I'm missing something. Plagiarism, check it tonight if you haven't checked it already. I really hope to be done kind of grading through these by Saturday at the latest for everyone's first assignment, and definitely all your newer quizzes by Saturday as well, like keeping up to date from now on out. Because from now on out, if I find it at the beginning, I'm not giving you feedback. You get one time of my ridiculous feedback, and then I'm just going to say this is a 0, and then the next time is a out of the system. And so, because I can't spend this many hours grading. But something else. How can I help you? Plagiarism checker. Oh, I'm missing it. Only quizzes this week. Figure out how to give you better feedback. I think those are the main things. Anybody have any more feedback you want to give me?
So I just have one more question because I didn't understand exactly. You given us a chance, like redo second assignment if we didn't do it right?
Yeah, so what I'm telling you is I didn't grade the second assignment yet. And so and you know that I'm still in the middle of grading the first one. So if you want to take a little bit of a deduction, and before I go to grade that second one, check it for plagiarism in the free plagiarism checker and fix it, I suggest you go home and do that tonight, because all that's going to happen when I find plagiarism in the first one is I'm going to tell you to go through and check before I even think about touching your second assignment. So just run it through. I mean, regardless of what's going to happen to your grade, I would run it through because I'm not gotten to it yet, and you could swap out the file. I'll see the change, but I'm late to grade, so when I'm late to grade like this, I don't usually penalize. Like I said, bark's worse than my bite. I can't really penalize you when I'm behind on my grading for being that late. The people who are late on, like really late on stuff, usually end up staying really late into the semester at this point. So I will give you most likely hardly any deduction, if any deduction, for swapping that file out. So,
But can we go and do changes over there? Because I thought we can't resubmit.
you should be able to resubmit.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It depends on what the teacher is setting. Hold on, I'm going to stop sharing the screen because it's in the grading center. It depends on what the teachers, every individual week, I have to choose multiple submissions or individual. And most of the time, at least for AutoCAD, I choose multiple submissions, but let me check and see what the settings are on those weeks. Did someone say possible solution? How do I check what in the chat? How does
The plagiarism thing, but I think you just click and drag. Is that correct? Highlight, click,
yeah,
and
yeah,
drag?
yeah. You copy and paste
Okay.
into the
Okay.
thing, and in some of them,
Okay.
and there's like a whole bunch of different ones. Like Grammarly, though, is like the best one for, if you go to Grammarly.com, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, we found plagiarism, because it searches everything. It's professional and you pay for it, but you don't pay to know that it found plagiarism. But then
Okay.
any of these other ones, you click and paste, or you can sometimes upload the whole document and it'll run through it, but pasting's probably faster.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. I can't find my little GoToMeeting guy. There he is. So let's stop sharing my screen really quick. And I was going to check the submission on the class session. Yeah, you should be able to resubmit, but I'm also like, if you email me a file and it's not a thing where you don't know how to use Blackboard and you just say, I couldn't submit, here's my file, I'm like really good at tracking you and keeping up with you. Like people who put in their effort towards their learning, I'm really good with saying, okay, so you couldn't submit it, so you emailed it. That makes sense to me. And then I take your file and then I save it and I give you the feedback. So don't ever not do something because I will put in the work if you put in the work. That's where I'm at with it. But history. And which one? Session 2? Let's see. Session 2 homework. Any more questions that you want to type in or say while I'm searching for this?
I'll say something. This is Annie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did my rugs, my rugs and everything, and then at the top I put my sources, but then I took out of the book what it said about that error, and then at the bottom of that, then I wrote my thoughts. So is that plagiarism? Because I added with each piece, I realized, but.
So you're telling me you kind of like gave yourself a prompter of saying like, here's the basic information from the book and then here's my added information?
Yes.
I would say it's just not necessary. Like
Okay.
it's not necessary because we've done it in the quizzes, and so like the expectation is kind of what I said in that little announcement at the beginning, that the book is our vocab prompter, that
Okay.
and then you just get into your visual assignment, and now I'm assuming that's your vocab. You know the motifs, so you're like, okay, the royal colors were green, red, and blue, and the pilasters. Like, I expect there's words that you now know and you can use. I just want to make sure you're using them, not that you found that the pilasters were bolstered up with the extra divine weights of infinity from a website. You know what I mean? So just leave off the book information and give me two new sources if you want to be safe instead of one new source, and put the content together to be in your own words.
Okay. Okay.
I changed the submission attempt for that, Lisa.
I'm sorry, do we need to do sources for assignment 3 too?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. So we talked about that on screen. If you're defending like your color combinations. So like I'm saying the 2017 color of the year is, pretty sure it's like forestry. No, it's greenery. And that's why I chose to use the colors green and then related natural colors, because I got that from Sherwin-Williams website, that information, to help defend my color selections. You would want to give me that citing, but you don't have to like quote it or anything. You know what I mean? I'd still want to know where you got it from, unless it was just like...
Because, okay, yeah, because I didn't do that, but that's exactly what I did on the Gothic, saying that Gothic usually green, blue, and bright colors, but nowadays Gothics, it seems like more red and dark and black, so, and I kind of did appealing to present time, but I didn't do any sources for that. It just kind of was obvious.
So never obvious. Are you in space planning right now, Cheryl?
What do you mean?
Are you taking space planning course, or have you taken space planning yet?
Oh, I already took it.
Okay, so like she just talked about this week, and I only say this for the benefit of everyone who's in here that's in it, like everything has to have supports, like in our design concepts, and the point of the rug assignment is to say, okay, I'm on HGTV and I'm about to tell you the trends of 2017, except I'm going to apply them to these nifty patterns from Byzantine times. So you needed to have like real life support for those things, not just I go to Hot Topic and I see it here, like I see this trending, or I like this, or I think it is. I want to know if it really is a trend and how you're using Architectural Digest or things like that to prove that to me, that it is a trend, not just that you think it's trending based on like mall window setups or things like that.
Okay, then I probably have to do third one or rewrite.
Or
I'm very afraid, okay?
I'm very afraid.
No, I'm waiting because you didn't give us any feedback on assignments, and I wasn't sure if we're doing right. So
yeah, no, I understand. That's why I'm saying I'm not penalizing, but I'm also like shifting through things that I should not have to, there should be no question that it should be done a certain way with the plagiarism. In my sense, as adults, I try to give the benefit because this is a strange situation. Community college is different than, like I said, just coming straight out of high school into education and continuing. There's all types of people from backgrounds starting in on what that means again. So it's just a lot to grade on my side. And then the other thing is the defending of your answers. I talked about it in the video. And if you want me to find the timestamp where I was saying like we needed to cite the sources of if we use HGTV Design's website or if we're doing that, it's just that's another area where I think if you're researching a design trend, then there should be some actual research behind it, and we've done prior research stuff. So it's like I can keep writing 4 pages of directions, but at some point I do need to see application of general understanding of continuing education, I guess, is what I'm thinking. I changed the submission attempts for the week, the second week. Let's see.
Now, have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's probably going to say, if it says plagiarism, and you have to write a certain way because sometimes there's just no other way to write it. Will it catch it as plagiarism because there's only so many ways to explain a carving on a headdress, you know what I mean?
So like, no, I totally get what you're saying. So like, it's like the Moroccan feathers and plumage were, lightly wafting around this entire circle or whatever it is. And it's like, how would I put that in modern day language? It's okay. But like the stuff that I'm seeing isn't like that. It's like we're talking about, like it says, the poles of the TP are leaning and they develop a cone. There's definitely a different way to say that. You know what I mean? Like where there's common words and wherever there's a new word, sure, use the real vocabulary like pilaster or column or ionic or Corinthian. But There's ways to rearrange, like if it says that the dwelling was found at the very high end of a cliff, there's words that I'm saying where it's like at the very high end of a cliff, and it's like you could totally say that a different way.
At the peak.
But when it's a new vocab word that's historical, you have to
Yeah.
use that word. I don't want you to describe it, the kind of cylindrical shaped object that was really tall to be a column. I want you to say column, you know what I mean? So the plagiarism that I'm finding, you'll know right away. And there's a reason that it's finding it. Those systems, now I'll tell you, this is also why it's taking me really long to grade. Yes, some of them are finicky, and they think you're plagiarizing when you're not. And some of you, what I do then is I highlight it in blue and say, this was a really, I say what you do well too. I said, this is one area where you did not plagiarize. You reworded this section very well. And then right above it, I did in red, this is where you plagiarized and you didn't reword very well. It's like I am like fine-tooth combing these things. It just takes really long when this is my job with another job and and everything else like you guys have. So for these corrections of these other assignments, if tonight is the night we go through and correct these things, then those things like supporting red and black, you're right, those are Gothic colors now. Can you just then keep the writing that you have and then cite a source that references back? That's what I was expecting, was like, okay, and then here's a reference to an article. You don't have to say even HGTV article says such and such and such. You can say, here's the colors, and then I've even seen this trending on HGTV. Here's said article. You know what I mean? It just needs to be somewhere else supported than your own concept of what's going around. Because let me tell you, what's happening in the West is 5 years behind what's happening. So wait, no, what's happening in the East is 5 years behind what's happening in the West. And so it's like, well, technically, it depends on where you're at and like what are you trying to say? I mean, even in explaining that, do you mean that it's a trend here? And I explained that in the video last week. I said, you know, what's trending in Florida is going to be different than what's trending in Africa. Where are you locating this trend? So those were all things that I talked about in the movie that I wanted to be handled, that I thought if you attended the lecture or watched it again, then we would have gotten it. So like just writing instructions sometime is a lot of work.
So let me, can I ask a question? So now you're telling us to go back and correct number 2 and correct number 3 and do an assignment for this week. So that's a lot.
So
now, it's not a complaint, but I'm catching a plane Saturday morning for 5 days. I'm trying to figure this out.
All right.
Can we like have deadline at least till tomorrow night? Like we can rewrite everything tomorrow?
Yeah. How about you can have a deadline until Monday?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
A deadline until Monday on these 3 things. And then this was like clarification night. And everyone is clear and you're getting homework assignments back. And if you didn't get your first one back tonight, at least I've been able to explain what I've seen going wrong so far. So you should still be able to check that. And then I hope to have it all back to you by tomorrow or Saturday at the latest, and caught up by Saturday for me. And then for you to correct all the things and have an eye towards fixing those things by Monday. And then I expect it to be corrected. Like we know what we're doing. I'll try to be extremely, they don't get much different from here. And if they do, they're not research-based. That's why I want to kill this right now. I want us to figure out research right now because these are the heavy research projects. And then we go on to do some fun interior design, like more creative freedom things where it's just showing me that you know how space planning works and you know how clients work. So yeah, till Monday is fine. And if you want to correct those things, please do. You want to just check them, even if you did well on the first one and I've given it back, please do. You can't ever check something too much when we're learning about these things. So that's funny. Kate Layer said she just ran hers through Grammarly and it said no traces of plagiarism but 20 grammar issues. Yeah, I don't want to run mine through Grammarly because it would just find rampant, horrible grammar issues. So, but that's not as bad as plagiarism. I don't care about your grammar. That's a whole nother class. That's a whole nother thing. I mean, I care if it's really bad. but general grammar is okay, and spelling, I'm not looking for it. I'm just looking for good content. Okay. Any more questions?
So we're open to resubmit now, correct?
Yes, and if not, because like the computer is being a little funny, like I changed it to multiple attempts. It's on my screen right now. It says maximum oh, I see. Okay, now I'm going to put that, submit. So session 2, I've changed to multiple attempts. Let me go into class session 3. Emily, it's changed to Monday 2. How do you feel about that? And then, all right, it was in session 3. And let me put my screen on just because you guys are bored not having anything to watch. Go to session 3. Yeah, so I hope, if anything, tonight you've learned Allison is easy to work with and she likes to help us out, right? So, so that's what I'm really trying to get at. I want you to know that about every instructor in this department. They are the best instructors that you're ever going to have as far as understanding your human beings, and we want to help you. If that means being on with you at midnight, at least for me. They don't feel that way about the whole midnight thing, but let's see. Yeah, if the quizzes aren't working, let's change the quizzes. Visual assignments are boring, let's change those. Due date. Now I don't want to change everything because I like to have a break too. Submission details, multiple attempts.
Now, I just ran one of mine through, and you didn't think it had plagiarism because I rewrote it the way it was, but the plagiar checker says it did. So if I'm in question, can I submit it to you to have you check before I submit it online? Is that going to work or no? I can say, well, I checked it for it says it does, but I reworded it, and I'm not sure why it's still telling me that.
Okay. I would say what Emily just said in the background. If you're in question, then I would just change it instead of send it to me again, like for the following weeks.
Okay.
Like, because then it's like I'm already grading it to send it back to you to regrade it. I don't know. It seems like a lot.
Yeah.
So just like,
Okay.
if you're really in question, but if it's just Grammarly, was it Grammarly that was doing it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Grammarly is pretty hard nosed, like they really are. That's my second check. So I'd run it through the Junkier one first, really.
Which one is?
Any of the free ones. Any of the free ones. Like
Okay.
and if they find it, then you're like real trouble. Okay. If the crappy one says no, and then the Grammarly says yes, then it might be something I'd say was worth it, and just say, once that the one normal guy said no, and then Grammarly said yes. And then I did a test on Grammarly last night. I typed like a ridiculous paragraph, like the funny cat walked over the moon, and I just like went on and on to see if it was just going to tell me I had plagiarism every time, but it doesn't. So, I mean, it must have found something, but at the same time, it could be a little crazy. There were some, and like you might find in the future, like there were some people who I thought you were like right on the edge, and I just highlighted it in blue because it was one of those things, like Grammarly didn't find anything wrong, or my thing didn't find anything wrong, but it was like, well, you're like just so close, or like why couldn't we have done a different source to fix this, So. But really, I mean, if I can just scare you guys in the first 2 weeks and we fix it, I'm promising you there's not much research in the future unless we get rid of these quizzes and then make research a part of the future. So I don't know. We'll have to work through it. Give me emails, more ideas. Let's all go to bed. That's where I'm at with it right now.
That's good.
Okay, so next week what I'm going to do is I'm going to like do this crazy, and I've had to do this in the past, last year. So I have to combine the lectures, but we're just going to move ahead like normal as far as like do the quizzes this week, pretend like we had a lecture. All the information you really need is in your book. The lecture is mostly permaculture side and then a little bit of interesting facts. So next week I'll do a little bit of the lecture from today, and then I'm just going to jump into the next week's lecture. And if you have any more questions, just email me, and now you can see I'm super willing to work with you, okay? So have a good night. Nobody else
Thank you.
catch
Good
a
night,
cold.
Allison.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.